It began quietly. No press release, no photos, no explanation. One morning, Jamie Dornan and his wife, Amelia Warner, simply disappeared. Their phones went silent, their schedules cleared, and within days, the couple was spotted boarding a flight out of London. No entourage, no security detail, just two people, exhausted and trying to breathe again. It had been a brutal few weeks. The headlines had turned merciless after the incident. The moment Dakota Johnson's sharp comment during an interview reignited every rumor the couple thought they'd buried years ago. For days, Jamie's name dominated tabloids. Every outlet dissected his marriage, his loyalty, his silence. Some accused him of choosing sides. Others painted him as the man torn between two women. But through it all, he said nothing. In the quiet of their home, that silence grew heavier. Jamie had always been the steady one, calm, controlled, unfazed by gossip. But this time, the noise had gotten too loud. His wife's eyes carried questions he couldn't answer, and his own reflection in the mirror had started to look like someone else. "I don't know how to be both things anymore," he'd confessed one night, voice cracking. Amelia didn't respond. She just reached for his hand. The next morning, she suggested what he hadn't dared to. "Let's get away. Just you and me." And so they did. They escaped to the western coast of Ireland, where the sky meets the sea in long, endless stretches of grey-blue calm. No paparazzi, no flashing lights, just the sound of wind against cliffs and the low hum of the ocean. For the first time in months, Jamie could walk down a street without someone whispering his name. Locals saw them once, sitting at a small cafe overlooking the water. Jamie was in a worn sweater and beanie, his face half hidden behind a newspaper. Amelia smiled, tucked into his shoulder. They didn't talk much, but they didn't need to. There was comfort in the silence, in knowing that for once, no one was watching. But healing isn't instant. Some nights, the tension returned. Jamie would stare out toward the horizon long after Amelia had gone to bed. The guilt lingered, not for anything he'd done, but for everything left unsaid. The world had turned his marriage into a spectacle, and he had let it happen by doing nothing. He thought his silence was protection, but it had only fueled speculation. One evening, as they walked along the rocky shoreline, Amelia finally broke the quiet. "You can't fix what people believe," she said softly. "You can only fix what's real." Jamie stopped, staring at her, her face calm, her voice steady. That's when he realized how much she had endured for him. The rumors, the comparisons, the constant shadow of another woman's name. And still, she'd chosen to stay. Later that night, over a bottle of wine in their small seaside cottage, Jamie let out a sigh that sounded like surrender. "I needed this," he whispered. "Not the escape, just this. You and me, away from everything." Amelia smiled faintly. "You didn't need to escape," she said. "You just needed to come home." Those words stayed with him. For the first time in a long while, Jamie felt something inside him unclench. The pressure, the guilt, the exhaustion, it didn't vanish, but it softened. He watched Amelia as she laughed over something small, her face illuminated by candlelight, and thought of how easily fame can blind you to what's real. In the days that followed, they lived quietly. Mornings began with coffee by the sea. Afternoons with long drives through the countryside, windows down, no destination in mind. Sometimes they didn't speak for hours. Sometimes they argued, gently, honestly. And every night ended the same. Two people holding on to each other in the dark, not as husband and wife under scrutiny, but simply as Jamie and Amelia. He wrote in his journal one morning, something he hadn't done in years. "Fame is noise. Love is silence. And somewhere between them, I forgot how to listen." For Jamie, this getaway wasn't just a break. It was survival. A chance to remember the sound of his own heartbeat beneath the static of the world. As he watched Amelia walking barefoot along the sand, the wind pulling her hair in every direction, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He didn't know what waited for them when they returned. More headlines, more questions, more opinions. But for now, it didn't matter. The noise was far behind them. The ocean stretched wide and endless before them, and for the first time in a long while, he could breathe. "I needed this," he murmured again, more to himself than to her. And as Amelia turned, smiling softly against the fading light, Jamie knew he wasn't just talking about the getaway. He was talking about them. The morning light spilled through the cottage windows like a quiet promise. The ocean murmured in the distance, and for the first time in weeks, Jamie Dornan woke up without the tightness in his chest that fame had carved there. Beside him, Amelia was still asleep, her hair scattered across the pillow, her breathing soft and steady. For a long time, he just watched her, feeling the strange calm that comes when the storm finally drifts out to sea. He had spent years playing strong men, characters who held the world together through sheer control. But here, in this stillness, he realized that control wasn't strength. Letting go was. Their getaway had no plan, no agenda. They cooked their own meals, walked along cliffs when the weather allowed, and spent hours doing nothing at all. There were no makeup artists, no stylists, no interviews. Just two people relearning how to exist without performance. Jamie later said to a friend, "It was the first time in months I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation." Still, the world outside didn't stop. News outlets speculated about their location, about whether they were working on their marriage, about what Amelia's silence meant. But none of it reached them here. They had unplugged from everything. No phones, no television, no press updates. The only sound was the sea brushing against the rocks. On their third evening, they built a small fire outside and sat together under a wide, starless sky. The air smelled of salt and smoke. Jamie stared at the flames and said quietly, "I don't know how to be this person everyone wants me to be." Amelia didn't answer right away. She was used to his confessions coming slowly, cautiously. After a while, she said, "You don't have to be him. You just have to be you." Her words were simple, but they broke something open inside him. For so long, Jamie had been trapped between public expectations and private guilt, a man adored by millions but unable to control his own story. He realized then that Amelia had never wanted perfection. She just wanted honesty. That night, they talked for hours. About the years of silence, the strain of constant scrutiny, the quiet fear that one wrong headline could undo everything they'd built. Amelia admitted that the hardest part wasn't the rumors themselves, but watching Jamie retreat further into himself every time they appeared. "You were here," she said, "but you weren't really with me." Jamie nodded, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "I thought I was protecting us," he said. "But maybe I was just hiding." The admission hung between them, heavy and real. Then Amelia reached out and took his hand. No accusations, no grand gestures, just forgiveness, offered in silence. It was the kind of moment you don't photograph, because it would lose its meaning if you tried to prove it existed. The next morning, they drove inland, winding through narrow country roads lined with wildflowers and stone fences. They stopped at a small bakery, laughed with locals who didn't seem to care who they were, and took a detour that led to an empty lake. There, Jamie watched Amelia dip her feet into the cold water and turn to him with a smile that looked like the beginning of something new. Later, sitting beside her on a weathered dock, he said softly, "I thought the world needed to forgive me. But really, I just needed to forgive myself." Amelia leaned against him. "And did you?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Almost." That honesty, imperfect, raw, human, was the turning point. The getaway wasn't about escaping scandal anymore, it was about remembering how to exist beyond it. To be husband and wife, not headline and rumor. By the end of the week, Jamie looked different. The tension had melted from his face. When a fan recognized him in a nearby town and asked for a photo, he smiled, genuinely, and declined with a kind laugh. "Maybe next time," he said. It wasn't arrogance, it was peace. On their last evening by the coast, as the sun melted into the horizon, Amelia turned to him. "Do you think it'll all start again when we go home?" Jamie watched the waves roll in, slow and deliberate. "Probably," he said, "but I think we'll be okay this time." She smiled. Why? Because, he said, reaching for her hand, I don't need them to understand. I just need this. It was the same phrase he'd said days earlier, but now it carried a different meaning. This wasn't just the silence or the sea. It was the life they were building, fragile and real, in spite of everything. When they finally returned to London, the world was waiting, cameras flashing, headlines spinning. But for once, Jamie didn't flinch. He'd found something worth holding onto, and it wasn't fame. It was the quiet truth he'd rediscovered beside the woman who never stopped believing he could find his way back. He smiled at Amelia as they stepped into the crowd, whispering one last time under his breath, I needed this, and I'm never letting it go.